And we are going to read a little book to start off with. I don't know, some of you may have read it before. It's called Alexander and the Terrible, Horrible, Not Good, Very Bad Day. Hopefully everyone can see it. I went to sleep with gum in my mouth, and now there's gum in my hair. And when I got out of bed this morning, I tripped on the skateboard, and by mistake, I dropped my sweater in the sink with the water running. And I could tell it was going to be a terrible, horrible, no good, very bad day. At breakfast, Anthony found a Corvette Stingray car kit in his breakfast cereal box, and Nick found a junior undercover agent code ring in his breakfast cereal box. But in my breakfast cereal box, all I found was breakfast cereal. I think I'm going to move to Australia. In the carpool, Mrs. Gibson let Becky have the seat by the window. Audrey and Elliot got seats by the window too. I said I was being scrunched. I said I was being smushed. I said, if I don't get a seat by the window, I'm going to be carsick. No one even answered. I could tell it was going to be a terrible, horrible, no good, very bad day. I could tell because Paul said I wasn't his best friend anymore. He said that Philip Parker was his best friend and that Anthony Moyo was his next best friend and that I was only his third best friend. I hope you sit on a tack, I said to Paul. I hope next time you get a double-decker strawberry ice cream cone, the ice cream part falls off and lands in Australia. There were 2 cupcakes in Philip Parker's lunch bag. Albert got a Hershey bar with almonds, and Paul's mother gave him a piece of Jelly Roll that had little coconut sprinkles. Whose mother forgot to put in dessert? It was a terrible, horrible, no good, very bad day. On the way downstairs, the elevator door closed on my foot, and while we were waiting for my mom to go get the car, Anthony made me fall where it was muddy. And then when I started crying because of the mud, Nick said I was a crybaby. And while I was punching Nick for saying crybaby, my mom came back with the car and scolded me for being muddy and fighting. I'm having a terrible, horrible, no good, very bad day. No one even answered. There were lima beans for dinner, and I hate lima beans. There was kissing on TV, and I hate kissing. My bath was too hot, I got soap in my eyes. My marble went down the drain, and I had to wear my railroad train pajamas. I hate my railroad train pajamas. When I went to bed, Nick took back the pillow he said I could keep, and the Mickey Mouse light burned out, and I bit my tongue. The cat wants to sleep with Anthony, not me. It has been a terrible, horrible, no good, very bad day. My mom says some days are like that, even in Australia.
Okay, so we're going to pass out these.
So just to introduce, that was a little introduction, but our habit is all about being proactive and the difference between proactive people and reactive people. So what were some things that you noticed maybe in this book that we read? Anything stand out to you? Yeah, Miles?
He was just very reactive. So just no matter what happened, he always had a negative attitude towards life, and it pretty much gave a lot of power to the outside influences of the world.
Yeah.
Any other observations? Yes. Connor?
Yeah, I mean, I felt like everything was a no good, very bad, horrible day. Whatever the expression was, it didn't matter what happened, that was his automatic response. He was just ready for it.
Yeah, so he was very pessimistic, and our habit is talking about being more optimistic and thinking about what we can actually be responsible for controlling. And so one of the things that it talked about in the book was being response-able and how you're able to control your responses and really being aware of that. And so the difference between proactive people and reactive people are proactive, they're aware of their responses, they're aware of what they can control, what they can't control, and they respond accordingly. Whereas reactive people are just very emotional, less logical when it comes to making choices about how they feel when the environment affects them. And so something that we thought of was doing a little activity regarding control, because it gave a diagram of a circle. And the middle circle is your circle of control, and then the second circle is your circle of influence, and then the third is your circle of concern. And so it goes direct control, indirect control, and then no control whatsoever. And so your middle circle would be situations where you're like, okay, that is annoying, but I can control that I'm gonna let it run my day or not run my day, or be upset about it and not be upset about it. And so taking the choices to respond accordingly would be your circle of control. And then your circle of influence are those people that you love and you want your actions to influence them, and what they do influences you, but they're kind of in the middle between you can control it, you can't, but it's the people that you let affect you. And then the circle of concern is the outer circle, which are the things that you can't control, and you want to make that circle smaller. And so putting more in the circle of control and less in the circle of concern. And so we have an activity. We printed out a circle for you guys. And with this, we wanted you guys to take just take a little bit of time and write something in each of the circles. So the inner circle would be your circle of control, something that you have direct control over. The second circle around it would be your indirect control or circle of influence. And then the third circle would be the circle of concern, so things that you have no control over.
Does anyone have any questions? We'll give you just a minute or so. Yeah, I think the circle of influence are things that impact how, like, who you are and how you live your life. Whereas concern are maybe, for example, like a world event that happens that you are concerned about, but you're not directly impacted by it.
And the influence would be like your friends or your family or people like that.
All right, just a few more seconds. Okay, so how was this exercise for you guys? What did you notice? What things maybe were challenging to think about? Not as challenging? Did you notice? Yeah, Jared?
I guess in the outside circle, I thought the sort of concern would be more of reactions to how you influenced or consequences or whatever else would happen based on yourself.
Mm-hmm.
And then when you said, oh, it's like worldly, so I was thinking more of like what happens compared to what are bigger ideas.
Okay. Yeah, does anyone else like have anything similar to Jared or was thinking in that direction? Yeah, Miles?
It's kind of scary to think about how many things are out of our control. And so it's kind of like a double-edged sword of knowing that there's a few things that we actually have control over, so those are the things that we actually should focus on.
Yeah.
But there's so commonly like focus on things out of our control. But yeah.
Yeah, that's so true. Something that I think is really powerful within this habit is the power of language and the difference between speaking in haves or can't or all of those more negative reactionary responses rather than I get to do this or I can do this. it's crazy how even just in changing that language, even if you don't fully believe it at the time, over the course of, I don't know, a week or a month of just kind of switching those little words, it can really have an impact on your posture, and that's that whole inside-out paradigm versus the outside-in paradigm, where what is happening inside then eventually affects the outside and how you react and are more proactive with other people.
And then there's also a great power that you have, and that is just the freedom to choose how you react. And so we put a little diagram there, and the stimulus can hit you, and then you have all of these different gifts that build you up as a person, and you have the freedom to choose how you respond. And so that we put was a great power, and a way to reflect that is your language. And so kind of like what Leah said, using like, oh, I have to do this, it's like, no, I get to do this, or I have the opportunity to do this, and viewing it in a more proactive mindset. And just from this, we wrote down a few challenges, and one of the challenges is to just listen to your language and be aware of what you're doing and what you are saying and how reactionary your language is. But also the second challenge was just taking time to reflect on your circle, and maybe just like a little time per day, and realizing like, oh, I'm not in control of this, I don't want to let it affect all the things that I can control, and let it affect your day.
And I really liked what you said, Miles, about just like the negative language that you, or Connor, whoever said it, but I don't know about you, but when I read this, I was like, oh man, he is like really negative. Even the good things or the more optimistic ways that you can look at life, he's just not about it. And so I think that goes along with listening to your own language and then listening to the language of other people and realizing how reactionary or proactive different people are based on different circumstances or seasons of life and all of that. But yeah.
Do you guys have any questions?
Well, thank you.
Thank you.